when death does happen, yeah, you can let it drive you. You can let it motivate you to deliver on your purpose. And I'll share a story with you. So whether you know this or not, my father died when I was 11 years old, which is nothing unusual. People dying, it's part of life. But from my perspective, my world had like crumbled in. It had like crashed, right? And at the age of 11, my father was only 29 years old himself. Yeah. So I'm 40 now. And I remember when I hit 29 and thinking at the time, like, wow, like my dad died at this age. He literally died, I think it was like a month and a half after his 29th birthday. So like 6 weeks after. And so when I hit 29, I was thinking, oh shit, there's so much more life to live. There's so much more things to do. And for me, if I go back to the feelings of being an 11-year-old, whose father died. And for me, my father was my kind of hero. He was my superhero, as a young boy. When I think about that version of Leon, 11 years old, for me, death was just like, it was this morbid experience. It was a cold experience. I remember going to the hospital, actually, in the morning when my father died, and actually seeing him on the hospital bed, laying there dead. Yeah. And before I went to see my father, because at this point, I just want you guys to understand the difference in feelings, which is, I believe it's important having gone through this. Before I went to see my father, I think it was my nan, one of my aunties, and the doctor was there saying, if you don't feel up to it, you don't have to see him. But in me, 11 years old, I wanted to see my dad. I'd always seen my dad for my whole 11 years. So when I went to see him, I remember that moment where my father was lying there and I put my hand on his arm and hand. And I remembered that feeling of no life. It's hard to explain, but if you've been through it, you'll understand. But I just remember that feeling of no life. And it's like this energy, this warmth, and I'm not trying to make this just a logical thing, because it was more than that. I could just feel within me. It was just no life. When I touched my dad, it wasn't like normally touching my dad, or holding his hand type of thing. So the point I want to get to is at 11 years old, it was this crushing thing and it was this fear thing. Whereas at 40 years old, I don't fear death. Yeah. What I fear above everything else is not fulfilling what I'm meant to be doing, what I'm meant to do here on this earth. And for me, like that motivates me.